As always, before you do any type of jacking, make sure you have your axle stand, your jack and your chocks, just to be on the safe side. We are doing the spring on this side. As you can see, it's completely crushed down here. There's no room, I can't put my fingers in, and what happens there, this side is way too high, as you can see here, because it's pushing down on there. There's my chocks. I'm going to let the wheel off, jack it up, and then we'll continue. Right, we got the wheel off. You can see the spring just hanging down, and I don't know if I can get the camera in under here, but basically it's completely collapsed up on itself. You can see this is just completely collapsed. Now we do have to be careful of a few things. These bolts at the back here, the McPherson struts, they can snap, so you have to be really, don't take that off with an air gun or a impact gun, because they can break. Do it by hand, very slowly, maybe a bit of heat. Then we need to take off the drop link and the 3 bolts at the top. That's really it. So I'm just going to slowly work this off camera and hope for the best. Hopefully I don't break that bolt. Right, we've got it off. Now you do have to be very careful, and if you can see that, just how rusty and all the crap that was built up in there. This would have braked if I was to try and get it off any other way. So 15mm, and it is a special bolt from Ford. So I just heated it up very, now you have to be careful, you don't want to really put heat into the shock. I heated up the 2 ends with my blowtorch, my map torch. And if you're worried, you can just put a cold rag over this, or a wet rag over that, because you don't want to put too much heat in there. But I was concentrating the heat around the bolt, and took 10-15 minutes. Open and close, and do it. Don't just do it with the big guns, because you will just break it straight away. So, done that, and I've also now just taken out, well, I say I have, the drop link. The drop link has to come off. That's a 15mm and an 18mm spanner at the end, or I used a 7/16, and just to catch it there, so that was good. Now we can actually take the bottom of the shock off from the hub. And again, now you can use WD-40 on bolts and stuff, but believe me, I've never known it really to work. There's loads of videos out there also proving it doesn't really work. Once these threads get rusty, you can't really get the penetration oil in. If you could get it in and leave it there long enough, a couple of days, then maybe. But look, heat is the best way to get any bolt out. That's just a fact of life. You just have to be careful. Now, maybe I don't have enough room. The shock really could do with having the shock further up. I think I need to wedge the shock up that way and then hit it down. Right, I'm just going to keep wedging the shock up like that and hitting it down until I get enough. Sometimes you have to take the bottom wishbone off, the bottom ball joint. It'd be a lot easier if I took the bottom ball joint off, but again, taking other bolts off, especially on an older car, can cause you other issues. So I'm going to do this for a few minutes, and then I'm going to see. If not, I'll take the bottom ball joint off. Right, look what I did. I just got a piece of wood, and I wedged it at the bottom or the top of the shock, and that kept it up for me, and that allowed me to get it off at the bottom. Boom, just the 3 bolts at the top now, and this shock's out. Right, just 3 13mm nuts at the top, and then this whole shock spring is out. Right, I think you can see the issue here. Spring completely collapsed in on itself. And obviously once you do one, it's always best to do both sides, just to even everything up. The top mount is okay. It looks kind of damaged, but believe me, it's not. So that's going to be okay. But obviously, I mean, it's like everything, you know, it's best to replace shocks, top mounts, absolutely everything, both sides. But live in the real world and money and all that sort of stuff, just do the 2 springs, unless you have issues with something else, of course. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to take this down to my new shed now and just compress it, because I'm at Brian's place and I don't have anything to compress the new spring here. and we can refit it then. Right, this is the way I'm doing it. I hate compressing springs, I really, really do. I do have a very good Facom spring compressor which I can bring around with me. I'm just waiting on different forks. The system is very expensive. I've done a video on it, and I need other forks. I'm just waiting for them to come up second hand so I can afford them, and then I can actually bring it around with me in the van. But I just really hate compressing springs. I just hate it. What you do need to make sure is you need to be careful, and you need to make sure you have the spring sitting right. So as you can see, this end here has to sit in there, because otherwise it won't line up, it'll fail the test, and it can make some horrible noises. It's just you don't want to be in that situation. So we need to now get this in. Hopefully we've compressed it enough, which we have, but the problem is I forgot the nut in the van. Right. So we need to get this back in place, get that in place there, gives us an extra bit of room as well at the top, which is obviously always handy. And now we need to hopefully screw the bolt on. Now I know people are going to have a lot to say about this next thing, but they're absolute, well, just YouTube warriors again. I'm going to put some vice grips on top of this. We've got to remember, we've got a 4-inch bump stop here, or 4.5-inch bump stop. So as long as we move the bump stop down and put our vice grips where the bump stop normally sits, it is physically impossible for the spring or the shock to fall below the bump stop, because the bump stop is stopping it. That's what a bump stop is for. So I'm going to do absolutely no damage here whatsoever, but I know there's going to be people that saying I am, but they just don't know what they're talking about. Make sure we're still in line, which we are. Now look at that, we're still in line at the bottom. Release the pressure, there we go. Now I'm going to push this bump stop back up there, but you can see the bump stop, and we have done no damage, but it can't go past the seal to damage because the bump stop is there. And the spring, even if the bump stop wasn't there, the spring wouldn't allow it to compress that much anyway. So, absolutely perfect. We can now go fit it back on the car. Boom. Right, so I got the top in, the 3 bolts just loosely, and I've just got this in place here. What we do have to be careful of is, see this here, hopefully the camera's showing you, this has to go in between here, so you know you got it lined up. But you don't want to go too low, because the bolt has to fit through this, but obviously in here. So you want to make sure this is right. And the easiest way to do it, I'm going to jack it up with the jack, put pressure on it, and then just some love taps. Make sure we're in line. A bit more. Right, we're lined up, so we'll just jack it up. You can put a bit of lube on this, but you just want to keep making sure it's going in. Put a little bit more pressure on it, not too much. I'm only using a little hammer and literally the weight of the hammer. I'm not putting a lot of force on this. Make sure it's definitely going in. Right, so all I'm going to do now is just put everything back, put the bolt back, put the drop link back, put the brake line back, the ABS sensor back, and we're good to go. Now you can see I had that a bit too high, so the bolt wasn't going in properly. But now we're good. So I just screwed that in by the gun, but I'm going to tighten everything by hand because it's just too risky doing it by the gun. But just to make sure that's in the right place now I've got the bolt all the way across. It's nowhere near tight, it's just all the way across. We'll jack it back up, we'll put it under pressure now, and we'll just loosen that off slightly. There we go. Now, it can be quite difficult getting as you can see, getting that back on, the drop link, but we need to maybe press down on the drop link. I like to keep it under a bit of pressure because it's easier. This won't turn as easy. But this is where I got the spanner in. See these two little flat plates here? And that's what I'm going to do, get the spanner back in to hold that to spin this nut back down. Get the handle of the jack. And with the handle of the jack, I can force this down like that, which then will allow me to get this in like that. Bit more. There we go. Now the fact that that's under a little bit of pressure is good for us for screwing it back, because hopefully with the power of the gun it might just hold it enough for us to keep it in place. And in this case, no it didn't, but doesn't matter. We'll now use 11/16 spanner. We'll get it on. We go. Boom. So tighten that by hand, tighten that by hand, and then we can put these back in. But what I've also got to do is just tighten these three here, and then I'll turn the camera back on. You know what? Oh no! Oh no! This goes here for the ABS sensor. Oh, I'll take that back off. It's not a big deal because we can hold it with the spanner. It's fairly easy. It's just me rushing. Not the end of the world. If I couldn't hold it with the spanner, it'd be annoying, but the fact that we can hold it with the spanner. Now, just put that back there. Move that away from there. Put that back there. Put that back there. Keep that straight. Boom! Look, I didn't leave there at all. It's a camera effect. I didn't leave it. There we go. Boom! Put this back on. Where's the clip for that? Put this clip back on, and then put the wheel back on. Take it for a test drive. Oh yeah, I've got to do the other side as well. After I've done the other side. Now, so I've turned the wheel out so we can get this a bit easier. So what we do is we put the pipe in first, and we put it down then, because that's the only way it'll go in. And on this, you'll see there's a slit where, what do I do with that? Where this goes, and this can only go one way. You can see there's kind of funny angles on it. This has to go in this way. It can go in both ways, but it's loose, so you'll know when you've kind of got it in the right way because it will actually hold it. So these can be tricky, especially get it started. Once it's started, they're kind of okay. Get a little hammer, a few little love taps. Did that go in? Oh, I didn't think it did. There we go. That's now in. So good. I've tightened that, I've tightened that, I've tightened the 3 bolts on top. It's a case of straightening up the wheel and putting the tyre back on. Right, look at the difference now. It was more or less touching the wheel before because it had snapped in half, but they screwed themselves together. So it was down a good 4.5 inches on this side, which also put the other side up. So I've taken everything off. I've got my chocks out there. But when we look at this side now, it's not kind of pointing up. It's fine. So just take it for a drive now. You remember before it was making some horrible kind of air intake noises, whooshing noises, as I put my foot down. Absolutely fine now. But also it was diving to the side because of the shock, and when you go over a bump you'd hear this horrible noise. Take my hands off the steering wheel now, absolutely fine. Kind of shake it, absolutely fine. So we're all good. It's driving perfectly. So we fixed the initial problem with the engine and the engine light and the black smoke, and we've now fixed the suspension problem. So we've got 2 new springs at the front. All I've got to do now is adjust the handbrake. I don't know if I'm going to film that because that could just be quite easy, just screwing the nut down to adjust it. But there we go, it's it. So as always, hope you like, please share. Oh my God! So as always, please like, share, comment and subscribe. Don't forget, links up here, links down below, but most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.